And then for the first time on this podcast, I get to mention Kyle Busch's name. He makes it on the screen, I think, for the first time that race after he loses a tire during the caution and has to come
Yeah,
back down.
I was gonna say to mention it all. All right. Hey, I do want to say, we got one more race, guys. We got one more race until Kyle Busch doesn't have his record. One more race. He's got one more race to do it. We're gonna see some history being made. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up his name, and you hadn't done it yet. And then you brought up his name. I had to throw it out there.
There you go. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite Couch Potatoes, a Redneck Boys edition. We're finally back. It's been a long, long time. I know it. The beard is gone. It's coming back, on its way back. Can't come fast enough. Had to do it for a costume. Okay, so I promise you guys, I'm trying to grow it back as fast as I can. But anyways, into the important stuff. We got a round of 8 to recover or recap, and boy, I did not expect this round to be as exciting as it was. I think I said that, it might be my favorite round as far as the tracks go, but I could not have expected this. But before we get into that, let's go over the news real quick. So we have talked to you guys about the lawsuit that's being filed by Front Row and 2311 over the charter agreement. Obviously, they are the only two to not sign that agreement. Just a little update on that. NASCAR comes out, and their response is that the lawsuit is meritless, and they are preparing to run a cup season with only 32 charters next season, which means they would be running without the 2 each, I believe. I know 23, maybe 3 each, so 6. Yeah, 6. That Front Row and 2311 combined. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how meritless this would be. I still don't fully understand what the lawsuit was about in the first place with the 23XI. I remember the last time we talked about it, there was kind of a few things up in the air on kind of how they were going to sue NASCAR. I don't know. I don't see how NASCAR can call it meritless, though. It seemed like it was more about the money in the first place for NASCAR, and it seems like Front Row and 23XI just aren't making the money, and that's why they want the lawsuit. So
yeah, I think Michael Jordan coming in there, he's not playing any games, and he wants what he thinks that they're deserved and that team's deserved, and yeah, it's a power play, and I think both sides are trying to play it right now, and the fact that it's still going on, I think, is shocking to me. I would have thought something would have been figured out. And NASCAR's got a short off season, one of the shortest off seasons in all of sports. It's only December and January pretty much, and then we're back into racing. So that's going to be interesting to see. We'll definitely try to update if we have any more updates before the season ends and see what happens at the beginning of next season. Let's move along. Kind of cool, interesting news cycle that happened since the last time we talked was NASCAR officially recognizing Bobby Allison as the winner at Bowman Gray Stadium back on August 6th, 1971. Now, the reason this is important is because with this win, it moves him out of the tie that he had for years and years, decades with Darrell Waltrip. And now he is the outright 4th winningest driver of all time. So if you're a Darrell Waltrip fan, probably not happy about this decision, especially coming back so late. I mean, I think it's a big deal being you can say you're the 4th winningest, even if it is a tie, and now you're 5th. I mean, you're still a legend, you're still Hall of Fame. That'll never be taken away. But I know if it was me and how competitive I was and how competitive these NASCAR drivers are, I'd be pissed about it. So a little more detail on it. The reason why it took so long and why it wasn't recognized as a win back in 1971 is because back then they ran two different series cars in that race. So essentially, imagine you had a Cup car and an Xfinity car. And Allison, he ran the Xfinity car, but it was called Grand American, which was not part of the Cup Series, but I guess drivers, teams, they had the option to do either one. From what I understand, the Cup car a little bit better, quicker, more horsepower, that kind of thing, but you are going to have to pit. It uses more gas, harder on the tires and whatnot. And so Petty, he was in this race. He ran the Cup Series car, and he had to pit once in this race, and Bobby Allison never had to. So Bobby Allison was able to run that entire race without pitting and won the race. Petty finished second in that race, but the ruling was because that it was two different series, which I don't understand why they had it happen in the first place. Because it was two different series, they just didn't count it towards any official NASCAR results, standings, whatever it may be. So yeah, kind of a quirky thing there. It's definitely a weird thing to do. I know, back in the day when NASCAR wasn't as established, things like this happened. But very interesting, and congrats to Bobby Allison, and sorry to Darrell Waltrip.
Well, and you're what I don't fully understand is why let them run two different cars, especially if this is going to be correct, especially if this is going to be, on the record. I don't know how big the sport was then, but it's just if it's going to be in your record books, then why not make everything official? You know what I mean? Like especially with NASCAR and how the cars can operate so differently, and how I think even back then that was before they it was like you could still modify some things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know. I just don't understand why you wouldn't make the whole group run the same type of car. I mean,
Right.
obviously not the same mods and everything to the cars, but you could run the same type of car, and that's just it's weird to me that you could choose between that and then to take the win away from the guy that came in first because of that. It makes no sense to me. So
So
I feel like he should have been the fourth winningest driver this whole time.
yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. And I think my biggest thing is why do it, especially, I mean, if it's back in the day and things are a little different here and there, okay. Like you said, some modifications were allowed and whatnot. But when you have a car that can't pit or that doesn't need to pit and one that does, like that's obviously going to be a huge advantage. I mean, we'll see it even in Vegas. Not that they didn't have to pit the whole time, but you see what advantage being able to stay out an entire pit cycle is. That's why a lot of drivers even today try to short pit or long pit or whatever it may be. So very weird, very interesting. But yeah, like I said, congrats to Bobby, and there you go. Now we don't have a tie. Now we know who's fourth and fifth. But that's the news. Let's get into the race and Las Vegas. Wow. Of course, we're not there when an actual exciting Vegas race happens. I mean, this was
Yeah.
in my recent memory, this was the most exciting Vegas race that I've seen. As far as wrecks and strategy, passes, you had cars dominating, cars not, and it was all kinds of weird. And speaking of that, let's just get into it. Stage 1, Denny Hamlin. First thing that really happened in this stage was Denny Hamlin has a little trouble on pit road. Uh, his first pit stop cost him 8 spots on the track, and he has to fight his way back from that. And then the only other thing in stage 1 is Daniel Hemrick getting into the back of Austin Dillon and pushing him into the wall, and suffers a hard lick into turn 3. He came on the radio right away, said he was okay, which is good. But yeah, that was a scary, scary hit, especially, going into Vegas, what kind of momentum you can take going into turn 3. So glad that Austin was okay. He wasn't able to obviously finished the race. But other than that, that was pretty much stage one. We know how these stage ones go usually. And then Tyler Reddick was the one who ended up winning stage one. Moving into stage two, what Denny Hamlin does to try to gain that track position back is stay out. But because he stays out, he loses a ton of positions quickly. I think he fell into the 20s within a short amount of laps. And then let's get into the big wreck. Boy, this was kind of scary and then kind of crazy because I don't know if you saw, but or like noticed what I noticed, but so before I'll get into the wreck itself. So Truex and Elliott and Reddick kind of run out of room. They're going 3 wide coming out of 4. And the contact happens. Elliott spins out, collects Reddick, sends him into the infield. And then as he passes they have like a mini track in the infield, kind of just catches at the right spot and flips his car over. And I don't know, it just seemed like to me, it almost looked like he could have kept going. Like that car looked like it had minimal damage. It looked like you almost were playing NASCAR with the damage turned off or whatever. But what a crazy wreck that was.
Yeah, no, that was definitely, and like you were saying, it's definitely this Vegas race is definitely the most exciting that I've seen since I've started watching NASCAR. And that wreck right there, I mean, that would have been amazing to see in person, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been right in front of our seats too,
Yep,
which
yep.
because we get the same seats every year, and it would have been right in front of us. That would have been awesome to watch. But yeah, no, I mean, when Reddick flipped, he like when he landed, it was weird because he was skipping through the infield, hit that little track, flipped over, came back on top on his wheels. I mean, really, the only thing that looked like it was damaged was really just the tires
Mm-hmm.
themselves, not even the wheels. It was just the tires. Like they
Yeah.
just like folded off when the car flipped back over, and I mean, it looked like he was going to start driving again when it flipped back over because he get flipped over and he drove forward a little bit and then stopped.
Yeah. Well, I
And then
think
he
he
even
had,
said,
sorry, go
"Huh?
ahead. I was just
No,
going to
I
say, I
was gonna,
think he made
I
it
was
to
gonna say
his
because
pit stop, his pit
yeah, he did.
stall. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he after he was done flipping, like literally 2 seconds after he was done flipping, he radioed over to the crew chief and said, "I'm fine."
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, definitely. I mean, biggest wreck I've seen at Vegas since I started watching. So,
Oh yeah, and crazy thing too is it takes out Reddick and Elliott, both playoff drivers, right? And then at the same time, but not involved in the wreck, was Ryan Blaney. He has a right rear toe link go down, and this ends up costing him a couple of laps. So within the same few seconds, we have 3 playoff drivers with early trouble to start the round of 8, and a round you definitely do not want to have anything like that happen. So obviously Reddick is out for the rest of that race. I think Elliott's able to run a few more laps, and then he ends up having to take it to the garage. Then after that, Kyle Larson has pit problems. So not only do we have those 3 that were out on that wreck, but we have Hamlin and Larson with pit problems early. Like we said, I mean, we missed it. Who could have expected? But Kyle Larson did not dominate this race at all. And then, of course, when he has things like this go on, just makes it harder and harder to not only dominate, but to just be in it. But a playoff driver that did not have trouble in this race was Christopher Bell. And that really showed in stage 2. He shows that he was the class of the field and honestly looked like, if nothing crazy happens, he's going to be able to run away with this and take this home. He ends up taking stage 2 home. And then getting into stage 3, we have Ty Gibbs bringing out the first caution after he spins out in turn 2, which gives Kyle Larson a break. Finally, I think he radioed in on the radio, and it's like finally something good or something. Um, Gets him back on the lead lap, and then we have some wild strategy come into play, like I alluded to earlier. So what happened is Logano, uh, chose to take a pit stop away, stay out longer. And so he's running the track position game. He passes Suarez with, I think, only about 5 to go, another driver that stayed out there. And Bell had pitted, and Bell was making, I don't know, a second a lap or something crazy like that. He was running him down, but there was only a few laps to go. And so we're looking, we're wondering if he's going to make it in time. Blaney actually ends up, because he was still running, but I think he was 30 something, couple laps down. And Blaney ends up pushing him, kind of blocking for him. And if there was one more lap, we are talking about Christopher Bell punching his way to the championship 4, but there wasn't. And Joey Logano, fucking curse of, or not curse for him, but the even year streak stays alive, even in a year that, you thought Logano was kind of out of it. He punches his ticket to the championship 4 after, God, what I think I might have kept him out of the round of 8. I don't know if you did, but I think a lot of people, nobody was really looking at him as a favorite, and here he is punching his ticket, the first race of the round of 8.
Yeah, no, and usually at Vegas, we're used to seeing him doing the same thing Reddick did. So it's
Yep.
yeah, it's a sore sight to see, And I'm surprised that we didn't hear a lot from TJ during
Right.
this whole stretch, but yeah, no, it was definitely a good race, especially towards the end. And pit strategy, like you said, come into play. And
So yeah, we have Joey Logano making it. I know neither of us are happy to hear that, see that, but it happens in every even year, every even year. But let's get into Homestead, a race that I talked to you about. I've told you viewers that I love, and I'm really sad to see it go from the playoffs, and have wanted it to be still the championship race. And I think it proved that it belongs in the playoffs, deserves to be in the playoffs. So let's get into it. Stage 1, the curse of the 7 car continues. Justin Haley, all by himself, spins out on his own, causes the first caution on lap 1, and then another troublesome instance for Kyle Larson at a track that he dominates, blows a right rear tire on lap 47, which puts him back and makes his day that much harder. So here we are in a race that, you and I were like, Larson may win these first 2 races and cruise on to the championship. Like, thank God they reset at the championship, or he'd have it won, and that was not the case at all. And Mr. Tyler Reddick sweeps stage 1s in this first round of 8. He gets the first stage, and then we get into stage 2, where we start to have a battle with Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney. They really start battling throughout. I think early on in stage 2, Blaney tried to make the pass. Elliott held him off, and then it was about halfway through. Blaney charged him back down, got the pass. And that was even after getting into the wall earlier in that stage. So he was able to recover nicely from that. And then after pits strategy and everything, Hamlin and Chase Elliott end up in the front. They have a great battle as well. Just overall, really great racing. What you see from Homestead, you see a little bit from Michigan and Auto Club, which rest in peace Auto Club as well. But just the multi lanes, the wide tracks that offer different styles that you can take. And we've seen Larson, who's been one of the best, who just rides that outside wall, and you can get so much momentum from that. So really good racing to see. Hamlin ends up taking the battle. He wins stage 2. And then moving along to stage 3, we got Blaney and Elliott having a battle again at the beginning of stage 3. And the 7 curse rears its ugly head again. And Justin Haley spins all by himself, setting up some strategy, some new cautions, and then we end up with the top 7 drivers all being playoff drivers towards the end of this race. And more trouble for Kyle Larson, even though he made it all the way back into the top 10. He spins trying to force it 3 wide with Blaney and Austin Dillon, who was a lap car, and ends up spinning himself out there. this forces a pit stop for everybody with 15 to go. And then we get into it, man. One of the best battles I've seen in recent memory. We have Hamlin, Blaney, and Reddick going for the lead, all with 2 laps to go. And then we got one of the craziest passes I've seen. So Hamlin had the lead. Blaney passes him with 1 or 2 laps to go. And Reddick follows suit, is able to get by Hamlin as well. And then on turn 4, so not even a last lap pass, a last turn pass. And I texted our friend Krista and TJ right away and said, "Oh man, there goes Blaney," as we normally do. But Reddick passes him on the outside, very last turn, to punch his ticket into the championship four. So, wow. I know that was a mouthful. I got the whole race in there, but what are your thoughts on that race and then that final stage and battle for the race win?
Yeah, I mean, crazy battle at the end, and that's just playoff racing, baby. That's
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get into it a little bit later too, but it's just the battling and how hard the drivers are going to race, especially when you have the top 7 all up there. It's just, I mean, you see who the best of the best really are. Um, Granted, Larson's had a lot of trouble, and I think that's just NASCAR saying, "Oh, everybody's calling him his NASCAR's golden boy. We better pull the trigger, hit the button, pop his tire."
Yeah. How else is Kyle Larson gonna freaking get into the wall? Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, crazy race. It's always a fun track, like you said. So it's can't wait for this championship, man.
Gonna be exciting, but we have one more race before that, and that was Martinsville. And again, what a crazy race here. So to start it off, Denny Hamlin has trouble before the race even starts. He crashed in practice, which ends up making him have to start from the rear. Excuse me. And then getting into it, Christopher Bell ends up bringing out the first caution after he just took the corner a little too hot, got loose, collects Corey LaJoy, which obviously that was Corey's fault. So Christopher, don't worry about that. I know that LaJoy shouldn't have been there. No, but then Christopher Bell causes more havoc, gets into the 10 car on the back straightaway, trying to, force his way through it. I mean, we know Martinsville, it's a short track, it's a paper clip, there's not a lot of room. A lot of times you gotta use some bumpers and bump your way through the field. And so we see that happen. And then what I really like to see about this Martinsville race compared to others was that we actually saw that outside lane be an option for drivers. I mean, way back in the day, it was, you would much rather be like if a restart were to happen, you'd much rather your driver be in third place than in second, because he could have a chance. He could bump the first place guy out of the way, but usually that outside lane was never a chance. But it was, so that was pretty cool to see, especially on restarts and stuff. That outside lane showed some strength. But then, other than that, in stage 1, we see that Byron and Chase Elliott are the class of the field, and they kind of are running away with this, go back and forth with the lead. And Chase Elliott able to get his first stage win there. And what we saw, I believe, in this race was, I think Chase Elliott was well below the cut line. Ryan Blaney was well below the cut line. And I'm trying to think. It might have been because Reddick was already in, Logano was already in. I think Larson might have been below. And Bell also had some trouble. So we had some win or get in scenarios setting up in this last couple of stages. So
Well, I thought Christopher Bell had enough points, and he just needed to coast kind of through this race,
you're right. I
depending
think you're
on
right. Bell Hamlin was probably, maybe it was Hamlin that needed
probably.
some points because he started in the back. So I think actually, yeah, I think you're right. Bell wasn't like good, but he had some points where if he stayed up in the front, he would have been fine. So yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That is correct. So let's get into stage 2. We have Daniel Suarez bringing out the first caution of the stage, as cars just kind of basically got stacked up, ran out of room. Suarez goes for a spin. But Denny Hamlin was able to charge his way through the field. He makes it to the front by the middle of stage 2. And then we get into some more pit problems. Chase Elliott this time has almost the same problem as Kyle Larson had at Vegas, where the rear tire changer doesn't get the lug nut tightened all the way, and they have to, go back around and fix it, which causes them a bunch of spots. And then we get into kind of the villain of this race ends up being was Carson Hocevar. I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but he was just kind of driving reckless out there. In this case, he took it too hard. He spun out the 31 and the 38. And then after that, not much happening. Brad Keselowski gets the first stage win of the year, which I found kind of surprising because I know he won that race, but I guess he hadn't won any stages yet. And then more pit problems. Christopher Bell's pit crew didn't get the left front lug nut on, had to come back down, loses a bunch of spots there. And then we saw, because Blaney, in the same pit stop, we saw it all race. I think Blaney was right behind Carson Hocevar's pit stall, which was right on the turn. Martinsville's got that crazy long pit stop or pit lane that goes basically from turn 3 all the way to turn 2, basically the whole track besides the back straightaway. And they're right on the turns, and you just saw, boy, plenty of times Blaney just barely squeaks by and nearly runs into like some pit crew members, hits Hocevar, knocks tires loose. So very lucky that nothing happened there. And then at the end of stage 2, we have Blaney and Byron fighting for the lead, while SVG was a lap car kind of in the way, but he had nowhere to go. And he ends up kind of getting loose while Byron was on the outside of him, which takes Byron out and gets Blaney the stage 2 win. Moving into stage 3, we get into some pit strategy. Again, of course, as we usually see with those longer stage 3s compared to stage 2. And then we saw Bowman. Like I said, the Hocevar was kind of the villain. I don't know. It was hard to tell. Bowman almost looked like he was kind of sick of Hocevar and just bumped him and maybe intentionally spun him out. It was close enough to where we'll see. And then for the first time on this podcast, I get to mention Kyle Busch's name. He makes it on the screen, I think, for the first time that race after he loses a tire during the caution and has to come back down.
I was gonna say, to mention it all. All right. Hey, I do want to say, we got one more race, guys. We got one more race until Kyle Busch doesn't have his record. One more race. He's got one more race to do it. We're going to see some history being made. All right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up his name, and you hadn't done it yet. And then you brought up his name. I had to throw it out there.
There you go. I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's just been quite sad. He was running a little bit in the top 10 in Vegas, never really close enough to the lead. And Homestead was never there besides staying out on one caution. He was in the lead in that race for not even a lap, just a turn. But yeah, man, there's a reason I wore the Joe Gibbs gear today, and it's very, very intentional. I mean, I'm so sick of this RCR shit, man. This sucks. I mean, even at Martinsville, Austin Dillon was racing in the top 10 all day. Kyle was back in 30th. I mean, I just don't understand. It's not always been his favorite track, but towards his last years with Joe Gibbs, he was dominant there, got some wins. But yeah, man, this RCR thing, I'm so sick of it. I would love, you know what I think would be a great idea? RCR, buy him out. It was fun, not really. And we get that third 2311 charter, or Joe Gibbs, just find a way to, like, we're sorry, we'll do whatever.
You
Kyle,
want him
just
back in
take
that
whatever
Toyota?
pay cut, man. This fucking
get him
sucks, dude.
get
This
him back
sucks
into the
so
Toyota.
bad. I mean, you're talking, I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old the last time I didn't, and that was the last time Kyle Busch didn't win a Cup Series race, and that was the first season I started watching NASCAR. His first season in Cup, and it's literally been till now. And
So this is the year you stop watching NASCAR. It's been
oh
predicted.
my goodness. I love this sport. It was my first love. I mean, I got into this before basketball, football, you name it. Um, and yeah, this is by far been the worst season. He's had a couple of rough seasons, even at Gibbs. I think he missed the playoffs in 2020, but and he didn't have a win that season, but he got one at Texas, and he had shown speed in there. And outside of what he had, like a three race stint that we kind of talked about, or I was excited. He had those two back to back second place finishes where he probably should have won. But other than that, like, he's just been just garbage. RCR has been garbage, and I don't know what happened because, like, they built something last year. They had those 3 early wins, and they're looking, like, strong. The second half of the season fell off a little bit, but, like, I don't know how you regress so hard. Like, I've never quite seen a fall off like this.
He is getting old,
Just
man.
he, he is getting old, buddy. I
It
mean,
could just it could
not
just
that
be
old.
his fault.
No,
It
that
could
can't be
just
it.
be his fault.
That
You
can't
know,
be it at all.
he made a few mistakes. He's had chances, but he's made a few mistakes that were all
He,
on him. It wasn't just his pit crew. You can't blame
mm-hmm.
it all on Richard Childress.
No, but you can blame like 99% of it for sure. Yeah, no, in all seriousness, I mean, like, you're right. It hasn't been great and a lot from him, but I mean, I think it's just the week in, week out, especially like since these playoffs have started, like, you really just don't see him. I mean, I would, I'd like look at the leaderboard, I'd check in here and there, and like, is Kyle on the leaderboard? No. Then and that shows 20 places usually, just in case you guys don't know. So check, is Kyle? Nope. Oh, look, he made it 19th. Woohoo! Man, yeah. So thanks for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. Let's move
Yeah, you're
back into
welcome.
Martinsville. Let's talk about the drivers who matter at this point, and
Ooh,
let's
that
get
one
into
hurt.
it. So after that, Blaney and passes Byron, and Byron starts to lose some spots after this, which this is what ends up setting up a huge points battle between um, Byron and Bell, because at the time, Blaney's in the position to win, so that would automatically advance him. So we had Byron and Bell battling it out, both. And then after this, Elliott and Blaney, they bump Larson out of the way to get to the lead, which pushes Larson below the cut line, out of the lead position. And then Blaney ends up passing Elliott with 15 laps to go and wins the race. So after 1 week, after some heartbreak, and you think that, man, there was our shot to go to the championship 4 and defend our title, he gets it anyways on the last chance. And honestly, what a hell of an effort from that 12 team. They showed a lot of speed in this race and the last race. So hats off to those guys. And, Penske getting 2 drivers in the championship 4. I think if you were to ask that question at the start of this playoffs, the start of the season, really at any point, if there were a team to get 2 or more cars in, you'd say Hendrick, you'd say Gibbs. You probably wouldn't have guessed Penske. And so, yeah, any final thoughts before we get into what else happened in this race on Blaney making it to the championship 4?
I was gonna say there's still a lot to talk about with this
Mm-hmm.
race. But yeah, no, I mean Blaney, like you said, if you would have asked me if 2 Penske cars would have made it, I would have told you at the best one, and it would have been Blaney.
Right.
Um, if I would have, I mean, there's a solid chance that you could say, I mean, if not all four, three of them would have been Hendrick drivers halfway through the season. You know what I mean?
Legit. Yeah.
That's kind of what it came down to. It seemed like it was a Hendrick Motorsport season, and that they were going to dominate every race, and their drivers were always in the top 10. And if you would have asked me, I would have said, "Yep, at least 3 out of 4, if not all four, of the Hendrick drivers are going to be in the championship." Um, yeah, no, I'm happy for Blaney. He gets to go and try to win back to back. Man, that's the biggest thing. Is now he just put himself in the position every round of the playoffs to keep on excelling and try to get into a position where he could defend his title. Is and he's done a damn good job of it. His crew has done a damn good job of it. It's been good for that 12 team.
Oh yeah. And I'm trying to think. I may be wrong, but I think that the last person to win back-to-back championships was Jimmy Johnson when he won the 5 straight. As I think that there was a different winner every year. So yeah, we got Blaney, we have Reddick, and we have Logano punch their tickets into the championship 4. So who gets the 4th spot? Well, it was not that easy to determine. That points battle for 1 was so close. And why was it so close? Well, like I said, Byron was falling behind. He was losing some spots until Ross Chastain. First time we mentioned him in the podcast this episode. So there you go. He couldn't even make it on as soon as Kyle did, huh? And Austin Dillon, they make it.
He's got to win on the season, bud. He's got to win on the season, asshole.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was pretty dumb. So, anyways, Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon, they come up too wide behind Byron, and I'm like, oh boy, like these guys got speed. They're clearly faster than Byron. He's going to lose those spots. Bell's going to go. And I think at this point, Byron was in like 6th, and Bell was back in like 16th, 17th, 18th. He was far, but he had, fought some troubles all day, but was still holding on to a little bit of a points gap. And then we find out after the race, I don't know, some people might have figured it out. I thought it was weird because it happened for several laps. You had even Keselowski that caught him, and then we get to the final lap. None of those cars had passed him. And I can't remember how many laps it was. It might have been 10, 15 laps of Austin Dillon and Ross Chastain too wide, just sitting behind Byron, and then nobody else can pass him. I mean, this track just barely became a 2-lane track. It's definitely not a 3-lane track. So nobody else can pass him. So that happens. Byron finishes 6th, doesn't fall any further back. And then we have Bell, who ends up, I think, like 1 or 2 points behind. Byron's going to make it. And then all of a sudden, oh no, Bubba Wallace is having some troubles. And he falls back, falls way off the pace. What the hell is happening here? And then Bell does his terrible impression of the wall ride. I know you as a Ross Chastain fan were embarrassed to see it, but yeah, he and some say he wasn't trying to actually do a wall ride, but he just tried to take it a little hard because he didn't even, I don't think he got into the wall until like turn 4. But he ends up passing Bubba Wallace. Oh, that's weird. So we had Byron, Chevy, Ross Chastain, Chevy, Austin Dillon, Chevy. And then we had Bubba Wallace, Toyota, Christopher Bell, Toyota. Weird. So Wallace falls behind Bell. Bell passes him, gets a position, and they end up tied at the end of the race. And Bell had the tiebreaker because he had the higher finish in the round of 8. So then we are sitting for, gosh, I want to say like it was like 15 minutes after the race, just waiting to see whatever NASCAR was going to decide, because it was made clear at that point The 1 and the 3 were intentionally holding back, blocking the lanes so that their fellow Chevrolet teammate could make it to the championship. And same thing with Wallace. So there's that. I just laid it all out. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I want to hear your opinions. It does happen to involve your driver. Now, I don't think that this is any specific like I don't think if the driver had sole decision on this that they would have done the same thing. But man, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? So we have the 1 and 3 intentionally slowing down, blocking the field, and then Bubba Wallace intentionally falling behind so that Bell can make it. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, all. I don't know how like all intentional it was. When I was watching, I mean, obviously at Martinsville, if you have a two wide behind you, somebody's making it past you. Like it's super hard to block on that track when you have bear crack. When you have two drivers right behind you, it's really hard to block both lanes. And them sitting behind like that. But from what I saw, is it looked like Chastain was like would try to get up past him and then he'd fall back, or like just trying to make it not look intentional. But
Mm-hmm.
and then Bubba Wallace, that thing was just blatantly intentional. I mean, he's on the backstretch. He's about to hit the turn 3. All of a sudden, just throttles down. And there's too much computer in these cars now for NASCAR not to know that you intentionally just whiffed the race
Mm-hmm.
so that way Bell could have a chance. You know what I
And
mean? Like
that's
they know
another
exactly
thing.
what happens in all these cars.
Yeah, sorry to interject. The other thing too to mention is that they go back through their audio and all the teams, those 3 teams on their audio on their radio, don't pass the 24, let the 20 pass. So it was it was all intentional.
Yeah, clear. Yeah, no, and I mean, like I was saying though, like with Ross Chastain, it seemed like he wanted to pass, and I'm sure he could have.
Yeah.
But yeah,
When like I said,
and blocking.
I'm not blaming the drivers really. I mean, I think they play a part. They're behind the wheel, but like if they had full like decision, like if it like let in some random scenario, Ross Chastain is the one that's like, okay, I can either help my Chevy teammate, not even my teammate, but my Chevy teammate make it. If it was your actual teammate, I can see it, and you had no chance, or you were already eliminated from the race or from the championship 4. So I'm not like I don't want to like come out here and I want you to know that I'm not like, wow, Ross
No, I
Chastain
know,
is a cheater.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
Yeah.
See, what I'm trying to say is like the problem is though is if you're going to penalize these teams for doing this now, or not even teams, just the Chevy drivers. If you're going to penalize
Mm-hmm.
these guys for doing this now, then why not penalize fucking Toyota at Daytona for doing what they were trying to do? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all
Mm-hmm.
the Toyota cars, all lined up, all working together, all trying to come into the pit together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just why not penalize them there? If you're going to do it here, then why not do it the rest of the season? That's kind of my take on it. The other thing is, though, is that, I mean, the the problem is that if you have teammates, like even like an actual teammate, not just a Toyota teammate, an
Mm-hmm.
actual teammate starts dropping in the race like that just so you can have a chance, like
Yeah. Now that's yeah.
that one needs to get definitely ruled. If it's a teammate or if it's a manufacturer teammate or even if it's your friend on the track, you know what I mean? Like none of that should not be happening. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and NASCAR should definitely bite that one in the ass. But like what Austin Dillon and Ross Chastain were doing, I understand that they're only Chevy teammates; they're not actual team teammates. So I get that one. But if it was, say Larson or something like that was behind Byron, and Larson had no chance, and he'd be blocking for him too. You know what I mean? But that's an
Yeah.
actual teammate, so that can stand,
Makes more
in my
sense.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I think that 2 different things where if you just like basically stop or slow down so much on the racetrack and, like like clearly lose a bunch of positions or time so that your teammate can make it, that's bullshit. And I think it was so I think Burton was like, this is absolutely deplorable or something like that. We can't have this in NASCAR. This is disgusting after what a great race it was in general. To have this be the way that it ended is just embarrassing. And I totally agree. I'm paraphrasing for him. That's not exactly what he said, but I 100% agree with that sentiment. And then I believe Keselowski came out and said he hopes this is the straw that breaks the camel's back as far as like this whole manufacturer, alliance, in my opinion, bullshit that NASCAR has turned into. I mean, it's one thing to work with your teammates, but I've, I even then, like I saw, and it wasn't a playoff race, albeit, but freaking when Carl Edwards was on Joe Gibbs running the 19 car, he spun out Kyle Busch, wrecked him, not just bumped him out of the way, wrecked him to win a race in the regular season. And obviously, I'm pissed about it at the time, but in all honesty, like, and I think after that race, they're both like, "Yep, I would have done the same thing, and I'll do the same thing if I have the chance." And that's what racing was to me and should be. And now we have just this. Like this is, I mean, I remember back when I was a kid playing Mario Kart, and me and my friends did this stupid thing where it's like one of us could get first place, one of us could get second, one of us could get third and fourth, and we intentionally slowed down and sped up to do that. And I'm like, this is that reminds me. I'm watching this NASCAR race, this adult professional league, do the same thing as some 4 or 5 year olds did as stupid kids in a video game. Like this is just embarrassing. And yeah, I hope that this, like, I agree. First time I'll probably ever say it. I agree with Brad Keselowski, and I hope this is the straw that breaks the camel's back because it's just not real racing. I mean, if you catch him, Byron is that slow, like I don't know. And then Wallace, of course, and then he comes out and like, oh, this and this happened, and I'm not really sure what went on, and yeah, like I just lost it, couldn't whatever, and it's like, dude, you just slow down, you just let off the gas, and you already know. So like, I don't know.
Well,
I could go on.
I would say though that I think that teammates should be able to help a teammate. That's the only thing I would say. And it's but a teammate can't help like Bubba did,
Yeah.
if that makes
Well, like
sense.
look
So
at
a
look at
teammate
Lag-
should get teammate like because that's gonna ruin NASCAR as a whole.
Oh yeah,
If teammate even just teammates start doing that for like if a Joe Gibbs racer like Christopher Bell, and then you have can't think of another one right now for some reason, but
Truex. We got
Denny Hamlin.
Gibbs, Denny Hamlin.
Yeah. So if you have Denny Hamlin up there and he doesn't have any point in winning this race,
Hmm.
and then he falls back, just so that way your own teammate can do it, that should all be fined. That should all be penalized. All that. But the intentionally blocking and giving nudges, pushes, shit like that, that should stay, I think, as just a teammate thing though. So like just Joe
Yeah,
Gibbs Racing or just the Hendricks guys, those guys should be able to work together, not the manufacturing team.
like we saw at Vegas in this very same round, right? When Blaney was out of the race, he was in 30 something, multiple laps down. Logano's using that strategy, and he gave him some bumps when he could, and tried to block, but like to an extent too, because there's a thing I can't remember what race it was, but like Kyle Busch was in the lead. He passed Kurt Busch, who his brother let him by, and he kind of held up some of the drivers behind. You just didn't let them by. But like to an extent, and it's even in the rules, when you're a lap car, you got to let them by at some point. So that kind of thing, yeah, 100%. Like teammates can work together, actual teammates. And I get that, don't wreck your fellow Chevy guy, don't wreck your fellow Ford guy, whatever. I get that there's all this money involved in it, but it's just completely ruining the sport. I mean, I talk shit on F1 all the time because I feel like that's not real racing, and like you just have these, it's just manufacturers, it's just engineers. You just go out there and see who has more money. And it's like NASCAR's becoming like that in a sense with this kind of bullshit. So I hope that it does get nipped in the bud. NASCAR did come out and they, levied some heavy fines. They suspended the crew chiefs, spotters, and then some team executives for Phoenix. The teams and drivers, so the teams lose 50 driver and owner points. Owners are fined $100,000 as well as the drivers being fined $100,000. Trackhouse and RCR appealed these penalties. They were denied. Trackhouse, I think it was today, it was denied. And then after RCR saw Trackhouse's was denied, they pulled out. So that's that. Hopefully, we don't see some stuff like this next season. Hopefully, we kind of get back to some real racing. But after all that, Logano, Reddick, Blaney, and Byron make it to the championship four. What happened as we were waiting as well is Bell's move, his fake wall ride, if you call it, was deemed a safety violation. Yep. Which is what, NASCAR, and they even referenced it after the one did it a couple of years ago, which was already a rule. We've already talked about that, but now they're laying their foot down. So at least there's some consistency there. Ruled it a safety violation, disqualified Christopher Bell, and Byron ends up making it in. So let's get into our championship picks that we talked about. So you had Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin making it. I also had Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson making it. Neither of those guys end up making it. So let's just talk about that for a quick second. I mean, especially Larson, I feel like, and I think I've been having, in our power rankings and stuff, I've had Bell at 2 or 3 for quite a long time. But especially Larson. I mean, we've been saying all year, you've been saying, how he's NASCAR's golden boy. Unfortunately for him, not able to make it to the championship four in a season that, I thought seemed to be destined for Kyle Larson.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like I was saying earlier, man. That's kind of like I was saying earlier with the Hendrick drivers. Like if you ask me halfway through the season, then 3 out of 4 of them are making it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And at this point, it was Larson and Byron, and
yep, and Elliott had
only
a
one
chance.
of them made it.
Yeah,
Elliott had a chance also, but yeah, now it's yeah, I don't know, man. I thought for sure that Larson would be there. He had one of the most dominant NASCAR seasons that I've watched because I only started watching for the last few years, and
yeah,
yeah, I definitely one of the most dominant seasons I saw. If you would have asked me halfway through the season, Larson was the champion. Just blatantly outright, that was the guy. So just crazy to see that he had just such misfortunes happen in the round of 8.
seriously. I mean, of all rounds I know he had a few things, but yeah, this round of 8 was not his at
Also,
all.
I think we said that Larson was going to be like the only way that Larson doesn't make it this
Is
round
if
is
what
if his tire blows
happened.
up on every track. Yeah. So I mean, we definitely
Yeah.
jinxed the shit out of him, but we
Oh
did
no.
say that the only way that he doesn't make it is that everything has to go wrong, and it went wrong.
Hey, does that mean we've made it? Like we have the announcer Jinx power now? Is that what that means?
I guess so, man.
That's oh man. Sorry, Kyle Larson fans, but hey, neither of our drivers were in it,
I'm
so
not
it's
sorry.
okay.
I'm not sorry. So
Oh man. Well, like I said, so you had Blaney and Hamlin. So your pick that got in was Blaney. And then, like I said, I didn't have Larson or Bell get in there. I did have Byron and Reddick. So I got 2 drivers in there off of that. So we'll go into the power rankings. Really quick one, obviously, this time. We only have 4 drivers left. And the way that they're doing it, and it's going to be the way I do it, is just kind of like what they're viewing as odds, what they're viewing as who has the best shot to win, obviously, because in the championship four, all points are erased. It's winner take all. Whoever gets, the best finish, most points, and here's how they're viewing it. Byron in 4 in the power rankings, Reddick in 3, Logano and Blaney 2 and 1, with Blaney being number 1 for their odds are what they think who has the strongest chance to win, go back to back. And I'll just switch it up a little bit. I think I'm going to stay with Blaney. I mean, Blaney's shown that he's very strong at Phoenix. I'm going to put Byron at 2, keep Reddick at 3, and then switch Logano down to 4. So, I mean, whatever your thoughts on this, if you would switch it up anyway, if you like NASCAR's mine better, what do you think on, basically this, who would you rank? Like, what's your rankings for these championship 4 going into Phoenix?
In my honest opinion, I'd probably put. Oh, the problem is whoever we put as 1 is who we think our winner is. So.
All right, so let's put Logano and Blaney as 1, so we jinx the shit out of them, and that way Penske. All right, Joey Logano definitely guaranteed win the championship.
So is that your pick then? You think you take
I don't know if I.
Yeah, you don't know if you want to do that.
I don't know if I can say that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my power ranking, I think, would have to be. I think I'd put Reddick up there at the top, and then Blaney, Byron, then Logano.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I think we switch it up. We both have Logano at 4, but then the others are a little switched up. So that only leaves one more thing for us to do, and that is pick our champion. Wes, I will let you do the honors first. Who is going to win the championship? Well, maybe not the championship race. Maybe Kyle Busch can pull off a little Ross Chastain stealing magic. But that would be the bigger story.
His donut. You're going to see the smoke from his donut in the background. Like you saw Ross Chastain's.
Screw the champion, man. Kyle Busch kept his streak alive. I think that's what all NASCAR fans want to see at this point. But
mostly you.
Who wants, or who do you have winning the championship in Phoenix?
I am going to take the only guy that went through after my round of 8. I'm going to take Ryan Blaney.
Back to back. Wow. Okay. Well, I have some personal feelings, of course. So if Logano wins, he becomes a 3-time champion. Kyle's only a 2-time. I won't ever hear the end of that from you-know-who. And Blaney will also become a 2-time champion. So he'll have as many as Kyle. So I think I'm wanting Byron or Reddick to win this. And I think that Byron might have a better shot. Any one of these drivers could win. I mean, these 4. I think that Joey Logano is a slight titch below, but we've seen him do things that we did not expect. And I'm going to do this because I think it would be kind of hilarious with all the shit that's going on with 2311 and this whole lawsuit and NASCAR threatening to not let them be in next year. I think it would just be so hilarious to watch the NASCAR presidents and officials hand the trophy to Tyler Reddick and Michael Jordan. So I'm going to pick Tyler Reddick as my champion. I've been a big fan of him all year. Tyler Reddick, bring it home and possibly give us one of the funniest moments in NASCAR history.
It definitely could be, man. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad pick. Like you said, all 4 of these guys could definitely make it. So we'll have to see what happens come Phoenix. I mean, is Ryan Blaney going to be the champion without winning the race again? Or is it going to be Tyler Reddick actually finishing? We're going to get an actual championship win this year. You know, I think Ryan Blaney should have an asterisk on that championship from now on. Just because
well,
Ross
if he were to
won
win
the race.
If he were to win the championship again without winning the race and be still the only driver to not win the championship race and do it twice, yeah, maybe we consider some asterisks there. But yeah, hey, good luck, Kyle Busch, man. This is one more shot. You got one shot, one opportunity, to quote Jameis Winston, who quoted Eminem, something like that for our football fans. That's what I feel like, right? That's what Kyle needs. Kyle needs just a pep talk from Jameis Winston. I think that'll put him over the edge, get the win. Man, what an episode, and I cannot wait for this championship, man. It's going to be exciting. We got some faces we thought were going to be here and some faces that we did not. So we will definitely be back next week to recap the Phoenix race, the championship, and the season as a whole. Oh, as I say that, I don't know if that sounds like such a good idea. Recapping the whole season, it's kind of been the worst of all time, but we'll do it.
For
We'll do
you.
it. We got to have some integrity, right? We got to have some integrity. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. As always, we will drop the episodes on YouTube and Spotify either Saturday or Sunday. Get you ready for the race. And then check out the clips on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. And then other than that, till next time, we'll catch you on the couch. See ya.